Now that I've got this new to me 1996 Buick Roadmaster up in the air, I've been driving it around for about a week now, and it's time for its first oil change. I've got everything ready. I've already taken a sample of the used oil right there to send off for analysis, and that's going to be crucial in verifying the mechanical condition of this engine and how well it was taken care of. I pretty much already suspect it was pretty well maintained. There's not a lot of crud buildup inside the oil filler cap or anything. And looking down in there, you can see that it's fairly clean. A little bit of buildup there, but not too bad. And the Carfax indicated it was serviced periodically by the dealer. But the analysis will prove how well it was maintained and also how it was driven, if the engine was driven hard or not. I'm going to go in with the Amsoil high zinc synthetic that I use in all my vehicles. And I've already got the filter covered up, but I've already got the filter completely pre-charged with oil, so we're not going to have any dry starts. And I can do that on this engine because the filter mounts just like this. It doesn't mount at an angle or anything, so I can fill this filter up all the way so that when I start the engine it never knows the difference, doesn't even know what happened. It'll get it come up to pressure very quickly. And this oil change is going to be fairly straightforward. First thing we have to do, and I've already got the drain bolt loosened, is to go ahead and take it out. And there we go. Looks like the oil is not in too bad a shape. And then I'm going to have to get onto the other side and get that filter. From the looks of it, it looks like to be a genuine AC Delco filter. But I'll know more once I let this finish draining and put the plug back in. And then go ahead and pull the filter. Okay, this actually is a genuine AC Delco filter, which is good to see. And my filter wrench is a little bit too large. I'm used to working on the big Fords, which have the FL1A or Fram PH8A equivalent filter, so I had to use this special strap wrench that I have, which can take off just about any filter. And one of the things that concerns me is the fact that this thing is a little bit loose. It feels kind of weird. I'm wondering if I'm going to find some stripped threads when I get this thing off of here. There were some stripped threads on the oil pan bolt, which is unfortunately all too typical. People just can't figure out how not to use an impact wrench or anything on these bolts or cross thread them. And I don't have a service manual for the car yet, but I can tell that looks like an oil level sensor. So one thing I want to do before I put oil in the engine is to turn the ignition to the full on position and see if the low oil level light comes on and stays on, instead of turning on and then turning off for the bulb test, just to make sure that that sensor is working properly. Just letting this filter drain a little bit. There it comes. I'm going to let it drain from the engine and everything and then clean it up. Get this oil pan drain out of here and check the condition of the threads. Being under the car, you can see the transmission cooler lines going into the radiator, as well as the engine oil cooler lines going into the radiator. So that's really nice to see. This car is very well made and pretty heavy duty. One of the other things I noticed is the It's got a pretty significant oil leak, either around the front seal of the crankshaft or near the OptiSpark up there. The OptiSpark and the water pump were just recently replaced when I got the car, which is should be good news. But it looks like whoever replaced it either didn't replace the seals, or didn't put the seals in properly, or damaged the seals when he put it in. So that Opti is going to probably end up having to come out of there along with the water pump and the seals replaced. Not a huge deal, it's just labor. Good thing is that the parts can be reused, they're brand new, so that's where most of the money is. But everything else under this car looks very clean. I see Zerk fittings on the tie rod ends and lower ball joints at least, which is really good. Same thing on the other side there for the idler arm. Greasable on both ends of the idler arm actually. So that's very encouraging. Good on GM for not using these quote-unquote lube for life or lube for the warranty period components. I can go ahead and grease this chassis, and these look like the original tie rods. If they've been replaced, they've been replaced a long time ago, but because everything has Zerk fittings on it, my inclination is that this is all original equipment. Usually when they replace the tie rods, they'll just replace the one bad tie rod. They're not going to replace all 4 tie rods and ball joints and everything else. So that's very encouraging. I don't really want to do another ball joint replacement again. So anyway, I'll let that continue dripping out and get it cleaned up and be right back. What I'm doing now is flushing the oil cooler, and I'll explain more in just a second here. You can see as I apply air pressure, oil starts to drain back into the pan. Okay, while I was running compressed air through there is to attempt to flush the oil cooler. And I was running it through the oil filter input hole, back flushing the oil cooler. So I flushed all the lines, ran all the way up through the radiator and came all the way back, and it returned to the oil pan and finished draining out. So if you study the arrangement there of how these hoses are connected to that adapter, looks like the oil pump output goes to the oil cooler input, and the output of the oil cooler goes into the filter input. So by running some compressed air through that hole right there, I was able to flush any remaining oil out of the oil cooler. When it comes to lubrication or lubricants, I'm just obsessed with using the right kind of oil and doing just as thorough job as I possibly can. Gravity in this case actually helps, because when the engine is shut down, most of the oil just drains back out, but I wanted to get any residual oil back out of there, especially since I'm changing viscosities. The good news is that the threads here on the filter nipple are actually in very good shape. The reason the filter was loose is because this nipple was loose against the adapter, so I just went ahead and tightened that up. And now it's good for another 100,000 miles. That's pretty much normal on an 18-year-old car after God knows how many oil changes for that to work a little bit loose, but now it's nice and tight. And the gasket was actually stuck to the surface here, so I pulled that off. When you change oil, you want to make sure that the gasket is also taken off here and you have bare metal, otherwise you'll never have a good seal. So now it's time to go on with the new filter. Okay, I've got the new filter on. I'm holding the old one here just to kind of point out something I was a little surprised about that I don't really like. This thing has a plastic center support section in here, which I don't think is going to be quite as strong as the filter that I put on there. you can clearly see the perforated metal center section in there, which is going to be a lot stronger. And the filter I'm using is the EAO 23 filter, which is 98% efficient at 20 microns, whereas most OEM filters are going to be in the 40 micron range to 42 micron range. So we're going to be going in with a much higher quality oil as well as higher quality filtration. The owner's manual says you can go to a 1030 as long as your temperature is above 0 year-round, which it is where I live. And I'm going to go a little bit more than that with the 40 weight on the higher end, as well as the higher level of zinc, so that this engine gets the same level of zinc that it would have gotten with the oil that was used back when it was made. Even though it's not a flat tappet engine, it's got the roller tappets, I still want to have the higher protection of the higher zinc levels. So let me get this thing back on the ground, and we'll start adding our oil. Before I get this thing on the ground and start filling the crankcase, I wanted to, I mentioned earlier about the oil level sensor, and I want to check that while the pan is empty, so we'll go to full on. And the low oil level light is not turning off. I believe it will turn off after you turn the ignition key on. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll find out in just a minute when I start adding oil. So I think for the most part that system is working properly, which is great news. So let me shut it down and start filling her up. Just as an experiment, I went ahead and left the ignition switch in the on position and started adding oil to the crankcase just to see how much oil the crankcase can have before it starts to trip that light. The lower light there that says oil means there's no oil pressure, which is normal because the engine's not running. So I started adding oil 1 quart at a time until the light turned off, and that answer is about 3. So now I know that if that light comes on, that I've lost, I'm a full quart of oil low in the crankcase. This engine takes 5 quarts for a complete oil change. There's 4 for the crankcase and an extra quart for the oil filter. But in this case, since the oil filter was completely charged with oil, I'm going to go ahead and put 4 quarts in here, run the engine for a little bit, shut it off, and then check my oil level and top off as needed. So that does a couple of things. It shows me that the oil level indicating system is working properly. It also kind of shows me how the thing works. I wasn't sure whether the PCM needed to sense crankshaft rotation for that to work, or if it was just a simple, kind of a float switch like in a fuel tank or something like that. So it seems like this circuit's fairly simple. And now I know how low I am if that light ever comes on. Hopefully it never will with the engine running. I'm kind of operating without a service manual here, so I'm sort of having to study things pretty hard and just kind of, use my head to see how all this stuff works, like flushing the oil cooler with compressed air and messing around with the oil level system, and that's kind of the fun of it. I got a service manual on order from eBay, which should be arriving hopefully in a few days, and I'll have even more fun with that, learning about the car. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and add this last quart of oil, fire it up, and see how long it takes that oil pressure light to go off. Okay, moment of truth. The engine's full of oil, and we'll crank it up and see how long it takes the light to go out. Pretty quick. That's very quick, actually. The drifters are nice and quiet. I'm just going to go ahead and let it idle and check for leaks. Shut it off and then go ahead and check my level one more time. We'll be done with this thing. Okay, everything is all topped off. off, and the engine did take exactly 5 quarts. And now the oil change is all complete. And you might ask, why was I so obsessive with the oil changes? Well, I take lubrication very seriously. They only made these B-body cars with the LT1 350 for 3 years. So there's not that many of them around, and they're getting pretty rare, and I just want to take as good a care of the car as I possibly can. And especially since it was the first oil change, I wanted to make sure I flushed everything out and go with a slightly higher viscosity oil. So will I do it this way again in the future? Flush it out with the compressed air and pre-charge the filter with oil? Absolutely. I don't want to run the risk of having any dry starts or any old oil flowing throughout the system. I want it to be all new. So anyway, that's the first maintenance thing I've done on this 1996 Buick Roadmaster. I'm going to work my way from front to back and start checking everything out, and go ahead and work with the transmission and rear end, and do all the maintenance that this car probably hadn't had done in many years.